What are you doing out here?
I'm headed to class.
We got a report about someone messing with cars.
So why you came straight to me?
Well, you don't look like the students we usually see around this lot.
There it is, another racist cop. Here, Marcus Harrington. And in case the name rings a bell, I'm the principal's son.
It started like any ordinary afternoon outside Brookside College. A warm breeze, students walking between rows of cars, backpacks bouncing on their shoulders, the familiar chatter of campus life in the background. But one officer's body camera would later become the center of a firestorm that rocked the entire state. Because in this video, we see a young black student, calm, alone, holding nothing but a notebook and a backpack, confronted for simply existing in the wrong place at the wrong time in front of the wrong cop. When the officer steps forward, his tone already sharp, the moment shifts. What are you doing out here? What follows is not just profiling, not just harassment, but an assault that triggers protests, exposes a history of complaints, and ends with a $6 million lawsuit that forces the department to rewrite its entire campus policing policy. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light.
Brookside College, a mid-sized state university in upstate New York, with an enrollment of about 8,000 students. The campus spread across 200 acres of rolling hills, brick buildings dating from the 1960s, newer science facilities, residence halls, athletic fields, and multiple parking lots serving commuter students and faculty. The south parking lot, adjacent to the Liberal Arts Building, was one of the busiest on campus during afternoon class transitions. It was 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday in early October. The weather was perfect, mid-60s, partly cloudy, leaves just beginning to turn colors. Students moved between classes in clusters, some hurrying, others taking their time, the normal rhythm of campus life. The parking lot was half full, cars parked in neat rows, a few students loading or unloading backpacks, heading to or from classes. Marcus Harrington, 21 years old, walked through the parking lot toward the Liberal Arts Building, where his 2:30 Introduction to Constitutional Law class was held. He was a junior, majoring in political science, carrying a spiral notebook and a pen, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He wore jeans, sneakers, and a Brookside College hoodie. He looked exactly like what he was, a student heading to class. Marcus was the son of Principal James Harrington, who ran Brookside High School in the same district. His father had worked in education for 23 years, had a reputation for fairness and high standards, and was well known throughout the community. Marcus had grown up in the area, attended Brookside schools his entire life, and was now continuing his education at the local college. Officer Derek Lownson, 42 years old, had been with the county sheriff's department for 16 years. For the past 8 months, he'd been assigned to campus patrol after a series of complaints about excessive force and aggressive behavior during regular patrol duties. Command staff had reassigned him to campus, thinking it would be lower risk, fewer confrontations, mostly dealing with parking violations and minor disturbances. They were wrong. Lounson's Axon Bodycam activated as he exited his patrol car in the parking lot. He'd been driving through campus on routine patrol when he noticed Marcus walking between cars. Nothing about Marcus's behavior suggested criminal activity. He wasn't looking in windows, wasn't trying door handles, wasn't acting furtively. He was just walking. But to Lownson, a black male in the parking lot registered as worth investigating. Lownson walked quickly across the parking lot, closing the distance. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Marcus turned, confusion crossing his face. "I'm headed to class. Why?" Lownson stepped closer, his posture aggressive from the start. "We've had reports about someone messing with cars in this lot. I need to see some ID." Marcus's confusion shifted to frustration. He'd experienced this before, being questioned for existing in spaces where he had every right to be. "Reports about what? I'm a student here. I'm walking to class." "ID, now." Marcus pulled out his student ID and driver's license and handed them over. Lownson examined them, his eyes moving between the photo and Marcus's face. You don't look like the students we usually see around this lot."
The meaning was unmistakable. Marcus felt anger rise, but kept his voice controlled. There it is. Another racist cop who can't believe a black student belongs on a college campus? He pointed to his ID. "Marcus Harrington. I'm a junior here. And I'm the principal's son. Principal James Harrington from Brookside High. You want to call and verify that?" Instead of backing down, Lounson's expression hardened. Being challenged, especially by someone invoking authority, triggered his worst instincts. This ID could be fake. Lots of people make fake student IDs to access campus facilities. It's not fake. You can verify it with campus security or the registrar's office in about 30 seconds. "Turn around and put your hands on that car. I'm going to search you." Marcus stepped back. "You're not searching me. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm going to class." I said, "Turn around." Other students were starting to notice the confrontation. Voices lowered, heads turned, phones began emerging from pockets. Have you ever been profiled for no reason? Drop your experience in the comments. Two campus security officers, hearing raised voices, jogged over from the nearby security station. David Chen and Maria Rodriguez both recognized Marcus immediately. They'd seen him on campus for 3 years, knew his father from school district events, had chatted with him countless times. Chen called out, "Marcus, everything okay?" Marcus's relief was visible. "David, this officer is accusing me of messing with cars. Can you verify I'm a student here?" Before Chen could respond, Lounson stepped between them. "This is a law enforcement matter. Campus security has no jurisdiction here." Rodriguez pulled out her radio. "Actually, we have shared jurisdiction on campus property per the agreement with County Sheriff, and we can verify that Marcus is a registered student who's been on this campus for 3 years without any incidents." Lounson's face flushed. "I don't care what you say. He fits the description of someone reported suspicious in this area." Chen stepped forward, his voice firm but professional. "What description? We haven't received any reports about suspicious activity in this lot today." "The description I received. From who? Through what channel? Because campus security monitors all reports related to campus, and we've had 0 calls about anything in this lot today." He ignored him, turning back to Marcus. "Last chance. Turn around and put your hands on the car. I'm calling my father. This is harassment." The moment Marcus reached for his phone, Lounson's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist hard. Marcus instinctively pulled back, a natural reflex to unwanted physical contact. Lounson immediately shouted, "Stop resisting!" Students watching from a distance began recording. At least 5 phones were out now, capturing different angles. Someone started a live stream that would reach thousands of viewers in minutes. Rodriguez stepped closer, her voice urgent. "Officer, he's not resisting. He was reaching for his phone. You initiated contact." "Stay back or I'll arrest you for interfering with a law enforcement officer." Chen was already on his radio. "Central, this is Chen in South Thought. We have a situation with county officer and a student. Requesting supervisor and Principal Harrington to respond immediately. Student is the principal's son." Lounson grabbed Marcus's shoulder and spun him toward a parked car. Marcus tried to step away, not fighting, but refusing to be manhandled. "Get your hands off me! I haven't done anything!" "I said stop resisting!" Lounson swept Marcus's legs and slammed him face first across the hood of a Honda Civic. The impact was loud enough that students 20 yards away heard it. Marcus cried out, the wind knocked from his lungs. Multiple students screamed. Chen shouted, "That's excessive force! Stop!" Rodriguez had her phone out, recording, calling into her radio for backup and medical. Lounson pressed his knee into Marcus's back, wrenching his arms behind him. Marcus was gasping, trying to breathe, his cheek pressed against hot metal. "I didn't do anything! I was going to class!" Should the campus security have physically stepped in? Yes or no?
The Bodycam footage, later released through legal discovery, captured everything with brutal clarity. Lounson's knee pressed hard into Marcus's lower back, his hands forcing Marcus's arms at an angle that caused visible pain. Marcus's voice, strained and desperate, repeating that he'd done nothing wrong. Then Lounson drove his knee harder into Marcus's side, targeting his ribs. Marcus cried out, a sharp sound of pain that cut through the ambient noise of the parking lot. Students watching were crying, shouting at Lounson to stop, but maintaining distance because he'd threatened arrest. A student named Jennifer Wu had started live streaming 30 seconds before the takedown. Her video captured the entire assault from about 15 feet away. The comments section filled instantly. "That's Marcus, the principal's kid. Why is he doing this? Someone call 911. This is police brutality live." Within minutes, her live stream had 3,000 viewers. Within 10 minutes, 15,000. By the time the incident ended, over 40,000 people had watched it in real time. Campus Security Central had immediately notified Principal Harrington, who was in a meeting at the high school 3 miles away. He ran to his car and drove to campus, covering the distance in what might have been record time. He arrived 8 minutes after Chen's initial call, his car screeching into the parking lot, and he saw his son handcuffed and sitting on the ground with blood visible on his face from where it had been pressed against the car hood. Principal Harrington ran toward them, his voice a mixture of fury and panic. "Get your hands off my son! You have no authority to detain him!" Lounson stood up, positioning himself between the principal and Marcus. "Sir, stay back. This individual was acting suspicious and resisted arrest." "That's my son, Marcus Harrington. He's a student at this college. What the hell are you doing?" "He fits the description of—" "What description?" Harrington's voice carried across the parking lot. Students had formed a wide circle, dozens of them recording. "My son is walking to class. That's not a crime. That's not suspicious. And you assaulted him." Campus Police Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell arrived with 2 additional officers. She took in the scene immediately. A student in handcuffs on the ground with visible injuries, an enraged parent who she recognized as a prominent local educator, campus security officers looking distressed, and a county officer who appeared defensive and aggressive. "What happened here?" Mitchell directed her question to Chen and Rodriguez, not to Lounson. Chen spoke quickly. "Officer Lounson stopped Marcus Harrington, a junior here, claiming he was suspicious. Marcus provided ID proving he's a student. Officer refused to accept it, attempted an illegal search, and when Marcus tried to call his father, the officer assaulted him. We witnessed the entire thing. It's on multiple cameras." Mitchell looked at Marcus still handcuffed on the ground. "Get those cuffs off him, now." Lounson started to protest. He resisted. "I said get the cuffs off. That's not a request." As soon as the handcuffs came off, Principal Harrington dropped to his knees beside his son, checking his injuries. Marcus's face was scraped and bleeding. His ribs were already bruising. He was shaking, whether from pain or shock or both. "Dad, I didn't do anything. I was just going to class." "I know, son, I know. We're going to the hospital right now." Lieutenant Mitchell turned to Lounson. "You're done here. Return to the station immediately and wait for internal affairs. Your shift is over." This student was— "I don't want to hear it. Every word you say right now will be used against you. Leave, now." What would you have done if you saw this happening on campus? By 6 p.m. that evening, less than 4 hours after the incident, the videos had exploded across social media. Jennifer Wu's live stream had been clipped and posted to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Multiple student recordings from different angles had been compiled. Combined views exceeded 40 million by midnight. The footage was damning. Every angle showed the same story: Marcus walking peacefully, Lounson approaching aggressively, the confrontation escalating without any provocation from Marcus, the violent takedown, the assault. And the audio captured Lounson's words: "You don't look like the students we usually see around this lot." Student groups organized protests that evening. Over 500 students gathered at the campus center, holding signs: "Protect students, not cops," "Marcus matters," "Fire Lounson." Principal Harrington addressed the crowd, his voice thick with emotion.
My son is recovering from injuries that never should have happened. He was profiled for being black. He was assaulted for existing. And this happened at a place of learning where students should feel safe. This officer has a history of violence and complaints that the department ignored. Until that changes, no student is safe.
The county sheriff's department issued a statement Tuesday evening. Quote, "We are aware of an incident involving one of our officers and a student at Brookside College. The matter is under investigation. Officer Lownson has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome." End quote. The statement satisfied no one. Students demanded immediate termination. Faculty released a letter signed by 147 professors calling for Lownson's firing and a review of all police presence on campus. Alumni groups threatened to withhold donations until the department took meaningful action. Local news stations led Wednesday morning broadcasts with the story. By Wednesday afternoon, national outlets had picked it up. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News all featured the videos, discussing police violence, racial profiling, and campus safety. Investigative journalists began digging into Lownson's background. What they found was deeply disturbing. His personnel file, obtained through Freedom of Information requests, revealed 8 excessive force complaints over 16 years, including 3 where citizens required medical treatment, 3 formal racial profiling allegations, all dismissed with minimal investigation, 1 previous suspension for using racial slurs during an arrest, reduced to written warning through union negotiation, multiple supervisor memos noting concerns about his aggressive approach and poor judgment in escalating situations. Rather than being disciplined or terminated, Lownson had been reassigned to campus patrol. The department had essentially moved a problem officer to a supposedly lower-risk assignment, hoping he'd fade into the background. Instead, he'd assaulted a student in front of dozens of witnesses and multiple cameras. Should officers with repeated complaints be removed permanently? Comment yes if you agree. Within 2 weeks, the Harrington family retained Naomi Carter from the New York Civil Rights Coalition. Carter had built her career prosecuting police misconduct cases and recognized immediately that this case had everything needed for decisive victory and meaningful reform. The federal lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court was extensive and meticulously documented. Count 1. Fourth Amendment violation. Unlawful stop and detention. Officer Lownson stopped Marcus without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Detained him without legal justification. Count 2. Fourth Amendment violation. Unlawful search. Attempted to conduct search without consent, probable cause, or warrant. Count 3. Fourth Amendment violation. Excessive force. Physical assault, including takedown, knee to ribs, and forceful restraint, constituted excessive force. Count 4. 14th Amendment violation. Racial profiling. Stop was motivated by racial bias, as evidenced by Lownson's statement about students who usually are in the parking lot. Count 5. Assault and battery. Physical violence causing injury with no legal justification. Count 6. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Trauma from being violently assaulted for walking to class. Count 7. Municipal liability. Department's pattern of ignoring complaints about Lownson, failure to discipline or terminate despite documented problems, and negligent assignment to campus patrol. The lawsuit sought $10 million in damages, plus comprehensive reforms to campus policing. The deposition phase revealed information that made the department's liability even clearer. Internal emails showed supervisors discussing Lownson's aggression issues and debating whether to terminate him or find him a less visible assignment. They'd chosen reassignment, prioritizing convenience over public safety. One email from a captain to a lieutenant was particularly damning. "Lownson's got another complaint, getting tired of the paperwork. Can we move him to campus? Less action there, less chance for problems." The response, "Good idea. Campus is mostly parking violations and noise complaints. Should keep him out of trouble." That email chain would be read aloud in court during trial preparation and would later feature prominently in news coverage. Lownson's deposition was a disaster for the defense.
Carter played the Bodycam footage and asked him to explain his actions. He claimed Marcus had swung at him, a claim contradicted by every camera angle. He claimed Marcus matched a description of someone suspicious, but couldn't provide any details about that description or who had reported it. He claimed he feared for his safety, despite being a trained officer facing an unarmed student holding only a notebook. Campus security officers Chen and Rodriguez testified that they'd witnessed the entire encounter and that Marcus had done nothing to justify detention, search, or use of force. Students testified they'd heard Lounsand make statements suggesting Marcus didn't belong on campus. Medical records documented Marcus's injuries, facial lacerations, bruised ribs, shoulder strain from the forceful restraint. Discovery also revealed text messages between Lounsand and other officers containing racial slurs and jokes about cleaning up certain areas of campus. Messages referring to black students as outsiders and troublemakers, despite no disciplinary records supporting those characterizations. As the trial date approached, the county's legal team grew increasingly desperate. The evidence was overwhelming. The videos were indefensible. The history of ignored complaints proved institutional negligence. A jury verdict could easily exceed what they were willing to pay and would generate even worse publicity. 6 months after the parking lot assault, the county agreed to settle. $6 million payment to Marcus Harrington. Officer Derek Lounsand terminated immediately. For cause, POST certification permanently revoked. Name entered into National Decertification Index. Mandatory anti-bias training. All officers assigned to campus patrol required to complete quarterly training on implicit bias, de-escalation, and student rights. Revised campus policing protocol. New rules limiting officer authority on campus, requiring supervisor approval for any student detention, mandating immediate notification of campus security for all enforcement actions. Independent body camera monitoring. Civilian Oversight Board granted authority to review all body cam footage from campus patrols and recommend disciplinary action. Public acknowledgement. Written statement acknowledging Officer Lounsand's conduct violated Marcus's constitutional rights and department policy. Do you think $6 million was too much, too little, or just right? Officer Derek Lounsand's law enforcement career ended at age 42. The body cam footage of him assaulting a student became required viewing in police academies across New York as an example of how racial bias and poor judgment destroy careers and violate rights. He filed for bankruptcy within a year, unable to find employment after his termination became public. His appeals to have his decertification overturned were denied. The National Decertification Index entry ensured he would never work in law enforcement again. He never issued a public apology. His only statement, released through his attorney, claimed he'd been unfairly vilified for doing his job. The statement generated backlash that led to threats, forcing him to leave the area entirely. Marcus Harrington took a semester off to recover physically and emotionally from the assault. He returned to Brookside College the following spring, continuing his political science degree with a new focus on police reform and civil rights law. He graduated with honors and was accepted to law school with plans to specialize in civil rights litigation. In an interview during his senior year, he reflected on the experience. All I wanted was to get to class. I was holding a notebook and wearing my school hoodie. Somehow, that was a threat. That's what black students deal with, being treated as dangerous for existing in educational spaces. The settlement was about accountability, but the real question is whether anything actually changes. The reforms implemented at Brookside College became a model studied by other universities. Campus police protocols were rewritten to emphasize de-escalation, require supervisor notification for any student stop, and mandate immediate involvement of campus security to verify student status before any enforcement action. Student complaint procedures were strengthened, with an independent review board given authority to investigate and recommend discipline. Body camera footage from all campus interactions became subject to quarterly review by civilian oversight. The changes had measurable impact. Complaints about campus police interactions dropped by 63% in the first year. Student surveys showed increased sense of safety and trust. Faculty reported improved relationships between students and security personnel. But Marcus's case remained an exception in one critical way. It was documented from multiple angles with clear video evidence that made denial impossible. Most incidents of police misconduct aren't recorded from 5 different cameras. Most victims don't have parents with community standing who can demand attention. Most officers with problematic histories aren't forced to face consequences.
Principal James Harrington used his platform to advocate for broader police reform, speaking at school board meetings and community forums about the need for accountability systems that identify and remove problem officers before they cause harm. My son survived because he was lucky. Lucky that students recorded it, lucky that campus security intervened, lucky that he had family support. But nobody should need luck to walk to class safely. The parking lot where Marcus was assaulted looks the same as it did that October afternoon. Students still walk between cars, heading to classes, living their college lives. But a plaque was installed near the spot, reading, "In recognition that all students deserve safety, dignity, and respect, may this space remind us of our ongoing responsibility to justice." The videos remain online, a permanent record of how racial bias manifests in split-second assumptions and violent enforcement. 40 million views across platforms, hundreds of thousands of comments, a reference point in ongoing discussions about police violence, campus safety, and the presumption that Black students don't belong in educational spaces. Marcus's case proved that accountability is possible when evidence is overwhelming and pressure is sustained. But it also proved how much must align for that accountability to happen. Cameras, witnesses, family support, legal resources, media attention, public outrage. Most victims don't have all those factors working in their favor. And so the fight continues, case by case, video by video, lawsuit by lawsuit, pushing a system that resists change toward something closer to justice. Marcus Harrington became a symbol of that fight, a reminder that students deserve safety regardless of race, and that officers who violate rights must face real consequences. If you believe these stories matter, if you think officers with histories of violence should be fired immediately, hit that subscribe button. We're exposing how problem officers get shuffled rather than removed, how racial bias operates in educational spaces, and how accountability requires constant pressure. We're fighting for students who deserve to walk to class without being treated as threats. This isn't about one officer or one student. It's about every Black person who's been criminalized for existing in spaces where they have every right to be.
All right. Recording this because this couple right here just accused me of stealing my own car.
That's not your car. People like you are always stealing cars from us.
Look straight into the camera because this is why I record all this just because I'm Black.
The smartphone camera was already recording when the shouting began, which should have been a quick, forgettable moment. A man walking back to his car after grabbing lunch instead became a digital wildfire that would dominate headlines for days. The Maple Ridge Plaza parking lot, normally quiet and uneventful, was about to become the center of a story viewed more than 52 million times in a single weekend. A story that exposed just how quickly a lie can spiral when fueled by racism, and how expensive that spiral can become. Before we continue, let me know where you're watching from. And if this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light.
It was 1:47 p.m. on a Saturday in late September. Marcus Jenkins had driven there for one simple reason: pick up takeout from the Thai restaurant and get back home to finish a work project he'd been putting off all week. He'd parked his black Honda Accord in a standard spot near the restaurant entrance, walked inside, waited 10 minutes for his order, paid,
and walked back out carrying a plastic bag with 2 containers of pad thai and spring rolls. Marcus had lived in the area for 11 months, ever since accepting a remote cybersecurity position with a firm based in Atlanta. He'd bought a modest house 3 miles from the plaza, kept to himself mostly, worked from his home office, and occasionally ventured out for groceries or takeout. He didn't know many people in the neighborhood yet, didn't attend community events, just lived his life quietly, which is all he'd ever wanted to do. As he approached his car, he noticed something odd. A white Ford Explorer was parked in the spot next to his, significantly closer to the driver's side of his Accord than seemed necessary. Close enough that squeezing between the vehicles to reach his door would be uncomfortable. The Explorer was empty, but standing beside it were 2 people, a white couple, both appearing to be in their early 50s. The man wore jeans, a flannel shirt, and a camouflage hunting cap. His posture was aggressive even while standing still, arms crossed, jaw set, eyes tracking Marcus as he approached. The woman wore dark jeans, a cardigan, bright red lipstick, and an expression that could only be described as hostile. Marcus walked toward his car, assuming they'd move aside so he could get in. Instead, the woman stepped directly in front of his driver's side door. "Excuse me?" Marcus said politely, his takeout bag in one hand, his car keys in the other. "I need to get in my car." The woman didn't move. "What are you doing around here?" Marcus blinked, confusion replacing politeness. "I'm getting into my car. Can you please move?" The man stepped closer, positioning himself beside the woman, forming a human barrier between Marcus and his vehicle. "This your car?" "Yes, it's my car. Now can you please move so I can leave?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "You don't belong in this neighborhood." The words hung in the air, their meaning unmistakable. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the mixture of anger and exhaustion that comes from being black in America and facing this exact scenario more times than he could count. But he also knew how these situations could escalate if he showed any emotion, any frustration, any hint of the anger he had every right to feel. He pulled out his phone and started recording. "I'm recording this. I don't know what your problem is, but I'm going to get in my car now." The moment the camera appeared, their aggression doubled. The man stepped even closer, his face now inches from Marcus's phone. "You threatened us? You're recording us without permission? This is a public parking lot. I can record anything I want. Now move." The woman's voice rose to a near shout. "He's threatening us! Someone call the police!" Marcus shook his head, keeping his phone steady, keeping his voice calm. "Ma'am, I haven't threatened anyone. I'm trying to get into my own car. You're blocking me." But they weren't listening. The man was puffing up his chest, getting louder, performing for an invisible audience. "We know what you're doing. Criminals like you, lurking around cars, scoping out what to steal. This is literally my car. I parked here 30 minutes ago. I went to get food. Now I'm leaving. That's all that's happening here." Have you ever been confronted for absolutely no reason? What happened? The woman pulled out her phone, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I'm calling 911. You need to stay right here until police arrive." Marcus's stomach dropped. He knew how these calls went. He'd seen the videos. Amy Cooper in Central Park, Barbecue Becky, Permit Patty, white people calling police on black people for existing, then playing victim when officers arrived. And he knew how badly these encounters could end when police showed up expecting a dangerous criminal and found a black man instead. "Ma'am, please don't call the police. There's no emergency here. I'm just trying to get in my car." But she was already speaking, her voice suddenly trembling, fragile, nothing like the aggressive tone she'd used moments earlier. "Yes, 911? I'm at Maple Ridge Plaza, and there's a large black man here who's threatening me and my husband. He's trying to force his way into a car that doesn't belong to him. He's being very aggressive. We're scared. Please send someone quickly." Every word was a lie. Marcus was 5'10", average build, not particularly large. He hadn't threatened anyone. He wasn't forcing his way into anything. He was trying to access his own vehicle. But the 911 operator was hearing a frightened woman reporting a dangerous situation, and that narrative would reach the responding officers before they arrived.
The husband leaned toward Marcus's phone camera, his voice dripping with false authority. "You're going to jail, buddy. You picked the wrong people to mess with. This is a good neighborhood. We don't tolerate criminals here." Marcus kept recording, documenting everything, knowing that this video might be the only thing standing between him and false charges. "I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I live 3 miles from here. I come to this plaza twice a week. This is my car. You are blocking me from entering my own vehicle. That's what's happening here." The woman was still on the phone with 911, embellishing her story with each sentence. "He's getting more aggressive. He's yelling at us. My husband is trying to protect me. We saw him looking in car windows earlier. Please hurry." Marcus felt panic rising, but forced himself to stay calm. Other shoppers were starting to notice the commotion. A woman loading groceries into her car 2 rows away had stopped, watching. A teenage girl walking past had pulled out her phone and appeared to be recording from a distance. Marcus made mental note of every potential witness. "Sir," Marcus said to the man, keeping his voice steady for the recording, "I'm going to unlock my car now to prove it's mine. I'm reaching into my pocket for my key fob. I'm moving slowly. I'm not threatening anyone." He pulled out his keys, the Honda key fob clearly visible, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. He pressed the unlock button. The Accord's lights flashed. The horn chirped. The locks clicked. The couple didn't acknowledge it. They were too committed to their narrative now, too invested in the lie. The man moved to block Marcus's path more aggressively. "That doesn't prove anything. You could have stolen those keys." Marcus's phone was still recording, capturing everything: the lies, the aggression, the refusal to accept evidence. "I just unlocked the car. It's registered to me. The insurance is in my name. My work laptop is in the back seat. What else do you need?" The woman finished her 911 call and immediately started recording on her own phone, creating her own counter-narrative. "I'm documenting this for evidence. When police arrest you, this will show exactly what happened." Marcus noticed the teenage girl approaching slowly, her phone still recording. She made eye contact with him and nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement that she was witnessing this, that she was documenting it too. That small gesture gave him a thread of hope. Why do you think people like this feel so confident lying to police? 7 minutes after the 911 call, 2 Mecklenburg County Sheriff's deputies pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. The couple immediately rushed toward them, talking over each other, gesturing frantically at Marcus, performing their roles as terrified victims. Deputy Michael Daniels, a 12-year veteran, stepped out of his patrol car and immediately assessed the situation with practiced eyes. A black man standing calmly holding a phone and takeout bag. A white couple in aggressive postures, both talking loudly. Other shoppers watching from a distance. His instincts told him something wasn't adding up. "Ma'am, sir, I need you to step back and let me handle this," Daniel said to the couple, his tone professional but firm. They reluctantly backed up, still talking, still trying to control the narrative. Daniels approached Marcus, his hand resting on his belt but not on his weapon, his posture non-threatening. "Sir, can you tell me what's happening here?" Marcus kept his phone recording, but angled it to capture the deputy. "Deputy, my name is Marcus Jenkins. That's my car right there, the black Honda. I parked here about 45 minutes ago, went into the Thai restaurant to get takeout, came back to find that couple blocking my car door. When I asked them to move, they started accusing me of being a criminal, claiming I was trying to break into a car. The woman called 911 and told them I was threatening them, which is completely false. I've been recording the entire encounter." Daniels nodded, taking in the information. "Do you have identification?" "Yes, sir. It's in my wallet. I'm going to reach into my back pocket slowly." "Go ahead." Marcus handed over his driver's license. Daniels examined it, then walked over to the Honda and verified the license plate against his mobile computer. The registration matched. Marcus Jenkins, the address 3 miles away, no warrants, no criminal history, vehicle current on registration and insurance. Daniels returned to Marcus. "Sir, can I see that video you recorded?" "Absolutely." Marcus airdropped the file to Daniels' phone. Daniels walked back to the couple, his posture entirely different now, no longer neutral, but clearly skeptical of their story. "I need to see ID from both of you." The man bristled.
Why? We're the victims here. ID now. Reluctantly, they handed over their licenses. David and Patricia Morrison, address in a gated community 10 miles away. Daniels ran their information. No warrants, but Patricia had a prior complaint for harassment at a retail store that had been dismissed. Walk me through exactly what happened, Daniels said, his tone suggesting he already knew they were lying. David Morrison launched into his story. We were loading groceries when we saw this guy, he pointed at Marcus, lurking around cars, looking in windows. When we confronted him about it, he got aggressive, started yelling, threatened us. My wife felt unsafe, so she called for help. And you saw him looking in car windows? Multiple cars. He was clearly casing them. Daniels pulled out his phone and played Marcus's video. That's interesting because this video shows him walking directly from the restaurant to his car, which you were blocking. It shows you accusing him of being a criminal. It shows him unlocking his car to prove ownership. And it shows your wife on the phone with 911 claiming he was threatening you, which this video clearly contradicts. The couple's faces went pale. Patricia stammered, He edited that. That's not what happened. Ma'am, there are timestamps on this video. It's continuous footage. Nothing's edited. At that moment, the teenage girl approached. Excuse me, officer, I recorded the whole thing too, from when he came out of the restaurant. He went straight to his car, that couple was waiting there and started harassing him immediately. Daniels took her information and had her send him the video as well. This footage showed a wider angle, capturing Marcus exiting the restaurant, walking directly to his car, the couple already positioned near his door as if they'd been waiting. It corroborated everything in Marcus's recording. What should happen when someone files a false police report?
Deputy Daniels stood in the parking lot reviewing footage from 3 different angles. Marcus's phone, the teenager's phone, and now security camera footage that the plaza manager had provided after hearing about the incident. Every piece of evidence told the same story. Marcus had done nothing wrong, and the Morrisons had fabricated their entire narrative. Daniels walked back to Marcus. Sir, one more thing. Can you unlock your car for me? Marcus pressed the key fob. The Accord's lights flashed. The horn chirped. The locks clicked open with an audible sound that carried across the parking lot. Daniels opened the driver's door and looked inside. Everything was consistent with someone who used the car regularly. A gym bag in the back, a laptop case on the passenger seat, registration and insurance documents in the glove box, all with Marcus's name. Daniels closed the door and walked back to the Morrisons. His partner, Deputy Chen, had arrived as backup and stood nearby. Daniels' voice was firm and official now. Based on the evidence I've reviewed, including multiple video recordings and witness statements, I have determined that you both filed a false police report. You claimed Mr. Jenkins was threatening you, attempting to break into a vehicle and exhibiting aggressive behavior. None of those claims are supported by the evidence. In fact, the evidence shows you blocking his access to his own vehicle and harassing him. Patricia's face crumbled. No, this is a misunderstanding. You're both being detained for filing a false police report. David's demeanor shifted from aggressive confidence to desperate denial. This is ridiculous. We're the victims here. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. The transformation was instantaneous. Patricia began crying, makeup running down her face. David's bluster evaporated, replaced by panic bargaining. Officer, please, we made a mistake. We didn't mean... But Daniels was already securing handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Marcus watched from beside his car, phone still recording, as the couple who'd called police on him were arrested instead. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Several shoppers had gathered, most with their phones out, documenting the arrest. The teenage girl gave Marcus a thumbs up. An elderly black woman called out, "That's what they get." As deputies guided the Morrisons toward patrol cars, Patricia was sobbing uncontrollably. This will ruin us! Please, this will ruin everything! Deputy Daniels paused and looked back at Marcus. Sir, I apologize that you had to experience this. You handled it exactly right. Stayed calm, documented everything. Didn't escalate. I'll need you to come to the station to give a formal statement, but you're free to leave now if you prefer to come by later." Marcus nodded, still processing what had just happened. "I'll come by in an hour. I need a minute." "Take your time. And thank you for recording. That video likely prevented this from going very differently."
By Sunday morning, less than 18 hours after the parking lot incident, the Morrisons' lives had begun their catastrophic unraveling. The videos had spread across social media with terrifying speed. Marcus's recording, the teenager's footage, a compilation someone had created syncing both angles with timestamps. By midnight Saturday, the combined videos had been viewed over 15 million times. By Sunday morning, that number had passed 30 million. The comment section was brutal and unanimous. Imagine calling the police on someone for trying to get in their own car. The entitlement is unbelievable. That man could have been killed because of their lies. They deserve everything that's coming. Local Facebook groups identified the Morrisons within hours. Their names, their address in the gated community, their employers, their social media profiles. Everything became public. Amateur internet detectives began digging through their social media history, finding and screenshotting questionable posts and comments that revealed a pattern of racial resentment. David Morrison worked as an insurance agent for a regional firm. By Sunday afternoon, his employer had released a statement. "We have become aware of an incident involving one of our agents that does not reflect the values of our organization. Effective immediately, David Morrison is no longer employed by our company." Patricia Morrison was a school administrator, an assistant principal at a middle school in a neighboring district. The school board held an emergency meeting Sunday evening. Parents were calling, demanding her removal. Teachers were threatening to protest. By Monday morning, she was placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. By Tuesday, after the board reviewed the videos, she was terminated. Their homeowners association issued a notice that they were investigating whether the Morrisons' conduct violated community standards. Neighbors began circulating petitions demanding they leave the neighborhood. Someone spray-painted "racists" on their garage door. While the vandalism was reported to police, no one seemed particularly sympathetic. The Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office reviewed the case and filed formal charges on Monday, filing a false police report, Class 1 misdemeanor, harassment, Class 2 misdemeanor, disorderly conduct, Class 2 misdemeanor, hate crime enhancement under North Carolina's ethnic intimidation statute. The DA held a press conference. "The evidence in this case is overwhelming and disturbing. The defendants deliberately filed a false police report, knowing their claims were untrue, with the apparent intent of causing harm to an innocent person based on his race. This office takes such conduct seriously and will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law." The Morrisons retained an attorney, who immediately began damage control. "My clients deeply regret this incident. It was a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control." The internet wasn't buying it. The videos showed clear intent. The 911 call recording, which had been released through a public records request, contradicted any claim of misunderstanding. Patricia's voice on that call had been calculated, deliberate, designed to portray Marcus as dangerous. Do you think losing their jobs was justified?
The legal proceedings moved slowly, as justice systems tend to do. The Morrisons pleaded not guilty at their arraignment, released on their own recognizance, with orders to have no contact with Marcus Jenkins. Their attorney filed motions to exclude the video evidence, arguing it was recorded without Patricia's consent during the 911 call. The motion failed. North Carolina is a one-party consent state for recording. Marcus was party to the conversation. The recording was legal and admissible. Their attorney tried arguing that the videos were misleading, that they didn't show the full context. But there were 3 separate angles, all showing the same story. The plaza's security cameras provided additional footage. There was no context that could justify their actions. As the trial date approached, the prosecutor's case only grew stronger. Marcus's testimony would be compelling. The videos were damning. The 911 recording proved false statements. Deputy Daniels would testify about what he observed. The teenage witness would corroborate everything. The Morrisons had no viable defense. 5 months after the incident, their attorney negotiated a plea agreement. Plead guilty to filing a false police report and harassment. Hate crime enhancement dropped in exchange for guilty plea. No jail time. Both defendants had no prior criminal record. Sentencing: 2 years supervised probation, 250 hours community service each, $8,000 fine each. Mandatory participation in racial bias education program. No contact with Marcus Jenkins for 5 years. Required to speak at 3 community forums about false reporting and its consequences. Letter of apology to Marcus to be read publicly. Patricia wanted to accept immediately, desperate to avoid trial and the possibility of jail time. David resisted, still clinging to pride and denial, but their attorney made the reality clear. If they went to trial and were convicted, the hate crime enhancement would remain. The sentences would be harsher, and they would likely face jail time. The plea was the best outcome they could hope for. They accepted. The sentencing hearing took place in a courtroom packed with observers, media, and community members who'd followed the case. The judge read the terms of the plea agreement, then addressed the Morrisons directly. Your actions that day could have resulted in tragedy. You weaponized the police against an innocent man because of his race. You lied to law enforcement, wasting resources and creating danger. You showed no remorse until facing consequences. The only reason you're not facing jail time is because Mr. Jenkins requested leniency, stating that he believes rehabilitation is more important than punishment. You should be grateful for his mercy, because frankly, I would have preferred to see you spend time behind bars.
Marcus tried returning to normal life after the incident, but normal had fundamentally changed. The video had been viewed over 52 million times. His face was recognizable. People approached him in public, some to offer support, some to apologize on behalf of white people, some just to say they'd seen the video. He was invited to speak at conferences about racial profiling and bias. Civil rights organizations reached out, asking him to share his story. News programs requested interviews. At first, he declined most invitations, uncomfortable with the attention, just wanting to move past the trauma. But gradually, he realized his experience could serve a purpose beyond his personal story. He began accepting speaking engagements, focusing not on revenge or anger, but on education and systemic change. "What happened to me happens every day," he would tell audiences. "The only difference is most incidents aren't recorded. Most don't go viral. Most people don't have video evidence to protect them. I was lucky." That's a terrible thing to say, but it's true. I was lucky that I started recording, lucky that a teenager recorded from another angle, lucky that the deputy who responded was professional and reviewed the evidence. But black people shouldn't need luck to be treated fairly. Marcus filed a civil lawsuit against the Morrisons seeking damages for emotional distress, defamation, and violation of his civil rights. The case settled confidentially 8 months later. While the terms were sealed, court observers estimated the settlement in the low 6 figures. Marcus donated a significant portion to organizations supporting victims of racial profiling and false accusations. The teenage girl who'd recorded the second angle, a 16-year-old named Jasmine Chin, used her viral moment to launch a social media campaign called #RecordTheInjustice, encouraging bystanders to document instances of discrimination and harassment. Her campaign gained traction, with civil rights organizations partnering to provide guidance on how to safely record and report incidents. Deputy Michael Daniels and his partner were formally commended by the sheriff's office for their handling of the situation. Daniels used his experience to develop a training module for other officers on responding to potential false report situations and recognizing when complainants might be lying.
The Maple Ridge Plaza management updated their security protocols, installed additional cameras, and required staff to complete bias awareness training. They also posted signs throughout the property stating that discriminatory harassment would not be tolerated and could result in prosecution. Would you have shared the video online if this happened to you? 3 years after the parking lot confrontation, Marcus reflected on the experience during an interview for a documentary about racial profiling in everyday spaces. "The saddest part isn't what they did to me," he said, his voice measured and thoughtful. "It's knowing it happens every day to people who don't have cameras. How many people have been arrested, charged, even convicted because someone lied and there was no evidence to contradict that lie? How many people are sitting in jail right now because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time and someone decided they looked suspicious?" The video became a teaching tool used in multiple contexts. High school social studies classes used it to discuss implicit bias and the consequences of false accusations. College criminal justice programs analyzed it in courses about police response and evidence evaluation. Police academies incorporated it into training on de-escalation and false report recognition. State legislatures in North Carolina cited the case when introducing a bill that would increase penalties for false police reports with racial motivation, reclassifying them as felonies rather than misdemeanors. The bill gained bipartisan support, passed, becoming informally known as Marcus's Law.
The Morrisons completed their probation requirements, performed their community service, and participated in the required bias education program. They fulfilled the terms of their plea agreement, including public apologies read at 3 community forums, though the apologies were widely viewed as perfunctory and insincere. Their attempts to rebuild their lives proved difficult. David struggled to find employment in insurance, as background checks revealed his criminal record. He eventually found work in retail management at significantly reduced income. Patricia was unable to return to education, her career effectively over. She found work in administrative support outside the school system. They moved from their gated community, unable to withstand the social pressure and ostracism from neighbors. Their marriage struggled under the stress, though it survived. Friends distanced themselves, family relationships fractured. The consequences extended far beyond the legal penalties. But the story ultimately isn't about them. It's about accountability. It's about truth prevailing when evidence exists to contradict lies. It's about a system slowly, painfully moving toward justice, one case at a time. It's about Marcus Jenkins, who wanted nothing more than to pick up lunch and go home, who found himself trapped in a nightmare of false accusations and who emerged as an advocate for countless others who've experienced similar injustices but lacked the evidence to prove their innocence. It's about Jasmine Chen, a teenager who saw injustice unfolding and made the split-second decision to record, providing the corroborating evidence that made accountability possible. It's about Deputy Daniels, who did his job correctly, reviewing evidence, asking questions, following facts rather than assumptions. And it's about the persistent, exhausting reality that Black people navigate daily, the knowledge that existing in public spaces can become criminal in someone else's eyes, that ordinary activities require vigilance and preparation, that carrying a phone with recording capability might be the difference between justice and tragedy. The parking lot at Maple Ridge Plaza looks the same as it did that September afternoon. People still park there, grab lunch, load groceries, go about their lives. But for Marcus, that space is permanently marked by what happened there. He still shops at the plaza occasionally, but he's always aware now, always watching, always ready to record if someone decides his presence is suspicious. The video remains online, a permanent record of what happened. 52 million views, hundreds of thousands of comments. A cultural reference point in ongoing discussions about racial bias, false accusations, and the importance of evidence in the pursuit of justice. Do you think justice was fully served in this case? Or should the consequences have been harsher? If you believe these stories matter,
If you think people who weaponize 911 against innocent people should face serious consequences, hit that subscribe button. We're exposing how racism manifests in everyday moments and demanding accountability for those who use the police as weapons against people they don't think belong. We're fighting for a world where picking up lunch doesn't require preparing for confrontation. This isn't about one parking lot or one couple. It's about every person who's been presumed criminal and had to prove their innocence for existing while black.
Sir, what are you doing here?
Waiting for my friend to go work out. Why?
We got a report about someone trying to force entry. Let me see your ID.
ID? For what?
You matched the call. That's enough for me.
Is it because I'm black?
Exactly. You got it right, buddy.
This is a big mistake, and it will cost a lot.
She's been calling me non-stop on the way here. Do you even understand what you just did? The man in that car, that's the police chief's brother. Get him out of cuffs right freaking now!
Officer Ryan Kelton had been on the force for only 7 months. 7 months of half-learned policies, shaky judgment, and a training file filled with notes no department ever wants to admit they ignored. Impulsive under pressure, relies on instinct instead of procedure, prone to escalations. But Brookford police needed bodies on the street, not perfect cadets, so Kelton passed, barely. On June 4, 2024, his inexperience and assumptions collided with a man standing outside a gym on a sunny afternoon. A man simply waiting for a friend. A man doing absolutely nothing suspicious. Kelton approached with his hand hovering near his taser, then jumped straight to accusations, then to cuffs, and then to panic because he had no idea who he just arrested. Not until the supervisor arrived did the truth detonate the situation. The man in the back of that patrol car was the police chief's brother, and Kelton had just destroyed his entire career. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these deserve to be seen, and your support helps bring the truth to light.
Brookford, a suburban city of roughly 120,000 people in the upper Midwest. The kind of place where strip malls line the main roads, where chain gyms compete for memberships, where residential neighborhoods spread out in planned developments. Peak Fitness sat at the corner of Riverside Avenue and Oak Street, a mid-tier gym with floor-to-ceiling windows, bright signage, and a parking lot that stayed busy from early morning until late evening. It was 4:23 p.m. on a Tuesday, the tail end of the lunch rush workout crowd and the beginning of the after-work surge. The weather was perfect, 73 degrees, clear skies, gentle breeze. People moved in and out of the gym in workout clothes, carrying water bottles and gym bags, following their routines without incident. Marcus Whitfield, 38 years old, stood near the entrance, waiting for his friend David to arrive. They had a standing Tuesday workout appointment, had been training together for over a year. David was running 15 minutes late, stuck in traffic, texting Marcus updates every few minutes. Marcus wore athletic shorts, a gray t-shirt, and sneakers. His gym bag sat at his feet, containing his workout gear, a change of clothes, his water bottle, and his phone charger. He wasn't pacing, wasn't looking in windows, wasn't trying doors, just standing, occasionally checking his phone, waiting. Marcus Whitfield was the younger brother of Police Chief Anthony Whitfield, who'd run the Brookford Police Department for the past 6 years. Marcus worked as a financial analyst for a consulting firm downtown, lived in the house 3 miles from the gym, and had been a member of Peak Fitness for 18 months. His membership card was in his wallet. His photo was in the gym system. He had every right to be exactly where he was. But to Officer Ryan Kelton, who pulled into the parking lot on routine patrol, Marcus looked suspicious. Kelton was 24 years old, 7 months removed from the academy, and operating with the dangerous combination of impulsive decision-making under pressure, tends to escalate situations that could be resolved through communication, and a strong reliance on gut instinct rather than established procedure. But Brookford PD was understaffed. 3 senior officers had retired in the past year, 2 had transferred to better-paying departments. The city council had approved new hiring, but the academy pipeline was slow.
So, supervisors were clearing rookies for solo patrol faster than policy technically required, hoping experience would compensate for inadequate training. Kelton had been cleared after just 10 weeks of field training, 2 weeks short of the department standard. His supervising officer had signed off with reservations, but under pressure from command staff who needed patrol cars on the street. Kelton's Axon Bodycam activated as he exited his patrol car. The footage would later show exactly what happened, frame by frame, a complete record of how assumptions become violations. He walked across the parking lot toward Marcus with purpose, his hand already hovering near his taser holster, his posture communicating suspicion before a single word was spoken. "Sir, what are you doing here?"
Marcus turned, his expression shifting from neutral to confused. The question seemed absurd given the context, standing outside a gym at 4:23 p.m., waiting for my friend to go work out. Why? Kelton's eyes scanned Marcus from head to toe, lingering on details that meant nothing. The gym bag, the athletic clothing, the fact that he was black. "We got a report about someone trying to force entry. Let me see your ID." Marcus's confusion deepened into frustration. "ID? For what? I'm a member here. I'm waiting for my workout partner." "You matched the call. That's enough for me." This was Kelton's first major error, though far from his last. There had been no call about forced entry. No dispatch report, no description of a suspect. Kelton had simply driven past, seen a black man standing near a building, and his inadequately trained instincts had told him that warranted investigation. When Marcus questioned him, he had fabricated a justification rather than admit he had no legitimate reason for the stop. "I don't match anything," Marcus said, his voice rising slightly. "I'm standing outside a gym I belong to, waiting for a friend. That's not a crime." Kelton stepped closer, his hand moving from hovering near his taser to actually touching the handle. "Sir, I'm going to need you to comply. Put your hands behind your back." "For what? I haven't done anything!" Before Marcus could say another word, Kelton grabbed his wrist and forced his hands behind his back. The handcuffs clicked into place with unnecessary force. Marcus's jaw tightened, his breathing quickened, but he didn't resist physically. He knew how these situations could escalate. He knew the statistics on use of force. He stayed still but spoke clearly, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "This is a big mistake, and it will cost a lot." Gym members were starting to notice. Several stopped mid-conversation, watching the encounter unfold. Phones came out, cameras activating. A woman in workout clothes called out, "What did he do? He was just standing there." Kelton ignored her, focused entirely on securing Marcus and getting him into the patrol car. He searched Marcus's gym bag, pulling out the water bottle, the workout clothes, the phone charger. Nothing suspicious, nothing illegal, nothing that could possibly justify the detention. But Kelton had committed to the stop and couldn't back down without admitting error. "You were attempting to gain unlawful entry," Kelton said, his voice carrying the defensive edge of someone who knows he's wrong but won't acknowledge it. "I said I'm waiting for someone. That's it. I'm a member here. My name is in your system. Call the gym manager. Check your dispatch records. Do anything except what you're doing right now." Kelton guided Marcus toward the patrol car. The body cam captured everything. Marcus's calm attempts at explaining, Kelton's refusal to listen, the growing crowd of witnesses, the phones recording from multiple angles. And it captured Marcus's final statement before being placed in the back seat. "You have no idea what you just did." What would you have done if an officer detained you for simply waiting outside a building?
Sergeant Linda Morrison received the call 7 minutes after Kelton had initiated the stop. She was 3 blocks away, finishing paperwork from a traffic accident, when a radio crackled with Kelton's voice. "Show me one in custody at Peak Fitness, Riverside, and Oak." Morrison knew Kelton. She'd reviewed his training file when he was cleared for solo patrol and had disagreed with the decision. Too impulsive, too quick to escalate, not ready for independent decision-making. But she'd been overruled by command staff, who needed coverage more than caution. She also knew something Kelton apparently didn't. The police chief's brother was a member at Peak Fitness and worked out there regularly. And when her phone started ringing, first the desk sergeant, then the captain, then the police chief himself, she knew exactly what had happened before she arrived. She pulled into the parking lot at 4:31 p.m., 8 minutes after the initial contact. Her body cam captured the scene. Kelton standing beside his patrol car, Marcus sitting in the back seat, visible through the window, at least a dozen gym members watching and recording. Morrison approached quickly, her expression already shifting from neutral to concerned. "Kelton, why is this man in cuffs?" "Got a report about attempted forced entry. Subject matched the description. He was acting suspicious, refused to cooperate." "What report?" Morrison interrupted. "I've been monitoring dispatch. There's been no call about forced entry at this location." Kelton's confidence faltered. When I arrived, he was standing outside looking around. Seemed suspicious. I made contact to investigate." Morrison closed her eyes briefly, the weight of the situation settling over her. Her phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen. "Chief Whitfield." She answered with a single word. "Understood." She turned to Kelton, her voice dropping to barely controlled fury. "Chief's been calling me non-stop on the way here." She paused, letting the implication hang. "Do you even understand what you just did?" Kelton's face showed confusion. "I detained a suspicious individual. The man in that car is Police Chief Whitfield's brother." The color drained from Kelton's face. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Morrison watched him process the information, watched the realization hit, watched his entire posture collapse. Get him out of those cuffs, right now. Kelton fumbled with his keys, hands shaking. He opened the back door of the patrol car. Marcus stepped out slowly, deliberately, rubbing his wrists where the metal had pressed against skin. Morrison approached immediately. "Mr. Whitfield, I am so sorry. This should never have happened." Marcus looked at Kelton, then at Morrison. His voice was calm, but carried unmistakable anger. "I told him I was waiting for my friend. I told him I was a member here. I offered to provide proof. He didn't care. He fabricated a call about forced entry and arrested me for standing outside a gym." Morrison had no defense because there was no defense. "Sir, we'll be conducting a full investigation." "That was profiling, Sergeant. Plain and simple. Your officer saw a black man standing near a building and decided that was criminal behavior. It doesn't matter who my brother is. It matters that this happens, that it happened to me, that it would have happened regardless." By this point, at least 15 people were recording. Morrison could see the phones, could imagine the social media posts already spreading, could calculate the public relations catastrophe unfolding in real time. This wasn't just an unlawful detention. This was the police chief's brother, detained by one of the chief's own officers for doing nothing wrong in front of dozens of witnesses, with video evidence. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his brother. "Anthony, I was just arrested outside my gym by one of your officers for waiting. Yes, actually arrested, in handcuffs. I'm fine, but we need to talk."
Do you think the officer would have acted differently if he knew the man's identity? Or was this bound to happen anyway? Internal Affairs Investigation. By Wednesday morning, the incident had reached Captain James Rodriguez, head of Internal Affairs. The body cam footage was already on his desk, along with civilian video from 3 different angles, a formal complaint from Marcus Whitfield, and a media inquiry list that ran 2 pages long. Rodriguez had been with Brookford PD for 19 years. He'd investigated hundreds of misconduct cases, but this one carried unique complications. The victim was the chief's brother, the footage was already circulating on social media, and the violations were so clear that defending them would be impossible. He started with the dispatch records. As Marcus had stated, there had been no call about forced entry at Peak Fitness, no report of suspicious activity, no description of a suspect. Kelton had fabricated the entire justification for the stop. Rodriguez pulled the gym's security footage. It showed Marcus arriving at 4:19 p.m., standing near the entrance, checking his phone periodically, making no attempt to enter the building, exhibiting no behavior that could reasonably be considered suspicious. At 4:23 p.m., Kelton appeared on camera, approaching Marcus directly. The entire encounter, from first contact to handcuffs, took less than 4 minutes. Then Rodriguez pulled Kelton's training file. The warnings were extensive and damning. Officer Kelton demonstrates impulsive decision-making, particularly in situations involving perceived non-compliance. Recommend additional scenario-based training on de-escalation. Noted pattern of escalating routine encounters into confrontations.
needs coaching on when not to initiate contact. Concerns about Officer Kelton's ability to distinguish between unusual behavior and criminal activity. Frequently interprets neutral actions as suspicious. Field training evaluation. Officer Kelton shows enthusiasm but lacks judgment necessary for solo patrol. Recommend minimum 4 additional weeks of supervised field work before clearance. The final recommendation had been overridden by a command staff memo. Due to operational necessity and current staffing levels, Officer Kelton is cleared for solo patrol effective immediately. Supervisors should monitor his performance closely during initial months. That close monitoring had never happened. Kelton had been patrolling alone for 7 months, making decisions without oversight, operating on instinct and bias rather than training and procedure. Rodriguez conducted the formal interview with Kelton on Wednesday afternoon. The conversation was recorded per department policy, every word documented for the investigations that would follow, internal, civilian oversight, and likely federal. Officer Kelton, you stated in your report that you responded to a call about forced entry at Peak Fitness. Dispatch records show no such call. Explain the discrepancy. Kelton shifted in his chair, his attorney beside him taking notes. I may have been mistaken about the specific call. When I arrived, the subject's behavior seemed suspicious. What specific behavior? Rodriguez interrupted. The security footage shows Marcus standing still, checking his phone periodically. What about that behavior suggested criminal activity? He was loitering. Waiting for a friend to arrive is not loitering. It's not suspicious. It's not illegal. You had no reasonable suspicion to initiate contact, yet you stopped him, demanded ID, fabricated a justification, and arrested him. Walk me through your actual decision-making process. Silence. Kelton's attorney advised him not to answer. Rodriguez leaned forward. Let me tell you what the evidence shows. You saw a black man standing outside a building without any articulatable reasonable suspicion, without any reported criminal activity, without any legitimate law enforcement purpose. You decided he needed to be questioned. When he exercised his right to ask why, you became defensive. When he didn't immediately comply with your unlawful demand, you arrested him. That's not policing. That's racial profiling. The interview continued for another 40 minutes. Kelton had no credible explanations. His attorney tried to argue that his training was inadequate, that the department should share responsibility for clearing him before he was ready. The argument wasn't wrong, but it didn't absolve Kelton of personal responsibility for his actions. Rodriguez's preliminary report recommended immediate termination and forwarded the case to the city attorney for evaluation of civil liability.
The video footage exploded across social media Tuesday evening. By Wednesday morning, it had been viewed over 5 million times across various platforms. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive of Marcus and critical of Kelton. He was literally just standing there, nothing suspicious at all. If this can happen to the police chief's brother, imagine what happened to everyone else. Officer needs to be fired and charged. This is exactly what we mean by racial profiling. Local news stations picked up the story by noon. Every broadcast led with the same angle. Police chief's brother arrested by department officer. The optics were devastating. If the chief's own brother could be profiled and unlawfully detained, it exposed how pervasive the problem was. Police Chief Anthony Whitfield held a press conference Wednesday afternoon. He stood at a podium in full uniform, his expression grave, flanked by the city manager and the president of the Civilian Police Oversight Board. Yesterday afternoon, my brother Marcus was unlawfully detained by one of our officers. I want to be absolutely clear. Family relationship does not make this worse or better. The violation is the same whether the victim is my brother or any other citizen. What happened to Marcus happens to black men every day in this country. The difference is that my position gives this incident visibility and demands accountability. He paused, his voice taking on weight. I have recused myself from the internal investigation to avoid any appearance of bias, but I will not be silent about what this represents. Officer Kelton stopped my brother without cause, fabricated a justification, and arrested him for existing while black. That is unacceptable.
and it reveals systemic failures in our training and supervision that I am committed to addressing. The statement was carefully worded, threading the difficult line between family loyalty and professional responsibility, but it was also genuine. Chief Whitfield had spent his career trying to reform police culture, implementing bias training and accountability measures. His own brother's arrest made the stakes personal. Marcus gave his own statement that evening, standing outside the gym where he'd been arrested less than 24 hours earlier. I wasn't targeted because I'm the police chief's brother. I was targeted because of how I look. My brother didn't protect me from this. His position just made it visible. But for every person who sees this video and is outraged, remember that this happens every day to people who don't have cameras, don't have platforms, don't have family members in positions of authority. That's why accountability matters, not just for me, but for everyone.
Marcus Whitfield retained Jennifer Chen from the Northern Civil Rights Legal Foundation. Chen had built her career on police misconduct cases and saw immediately that this one was both personally compelling and legally airtight. The federal lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court 3 weeks after the incident was comprehensive and devastating. The complaint ran 63 pages and detailed not just Kelton's actions, but the systemic failures that enabled them. Count 1, Fourth Amendment violation, unlawful stop and detention. Officer Kelton initiated contact without reasonable suspicion, detained Marcus without legal justification, and arrested him without probable cause. Count 2, Fourth Amendment violation, false arrest. Marcus was unlawfully restrained and placed in custody despite engaging in entirely lawful conduct. Count 3, 14th Amendment violation, racial profiling. The stop was motivated by racial bias, as evidenced by the lack of any legitimate law enforcement purpose and the fabricated justification. Count 4, fabrication of evidence. Kelton's claim about a forced entry call constituted fabrication of evidence to justify an unlawful stop. Count 5, emotional distress. The humiliation of being handcuffed in public, treated as a criminal, and subjected to racial profiling caused significant emotional harm. Count 6, municipal liability. The city of Brookford failed to adequately train its officers, ignored documented concerns about Kelton's judgment, cleared him for solo patrol despite recommendations for extended training, and failed to provide adequate supervision. The lawsuit sought $10 million in damages plus comprehensive policy reforms. The city's legal team reviewed the evidence and quickly realized they had no viable defense. The Bodycam footage was indefensible. The security camera video corroborated Marcus's account completely. Kelton's fabrication about the forced entry call was documented. His training file proved the department had ignored clear warning signs. Settlement negotiations began within 6 weeks. The city wanted to resolve the case quickly before discovery revealed additional problematic patterns in the department's training and hiring practices. Marcus's attorneys had leverage. The video had been viewed millions of times, public support was overwhelming, and a jury verdict could easily exceed what the city was willing to pay in settlement. 8 months after the gym parking lot arrest, the settlement was finalized. The terms were made public per Marcus's insistence that transparency was essential to accountability.
$8.5 million total settlement, $6 million compensatory damages to Marcus Whitfield, $2.5 million punitive damages, one of the largest settlements in department history. Officer Ryan Kelton terminated. Immediate termination for gross misconduct, fabrication of evidence, and civil rights violations. Post-certification permanently revoked by State Board. Name entered into National Decertification Index. Barred from any future law enforcement employment. No union defense. The police union declined to defend Kelton, citing clear and documented procedural violations that make defense untenable. Comprehensive policy reforms. All rookies required to complete minimum 16 weeks of field training with no exceptions for staffing needs.
Supervisor approval required for any detention initiated by officers with less than 2 years' experience. Mandatory bias recognition training every 90 days for all officers. Early warning system implemented to track patterns of stops, particularly racial disparities. Civilian Oversight Board granted expanded authority to review bodycam footage and recommend discipline. Review of all detentions and arrests made by Officer Kelton during his 7 months of solo patrol. 14 cases identified for re-examination. Public acknowledgement. The city issued a formal apology acknowledging that Marcus Whitfield was unlawfully detained and that Officer Kelton's conduct violated constitutional rights and department policy. Do you think financial settlements actually fix anything? Or does deeper reform need to happen?
Officer Ryan Kelton left law enforcement at age 25. His career, barely 7 months old, ended with a termination for cause that would follow him permanently. The decertification meant he couldn't be hired by another police department anywhere in the country. The National Decertification Index entry meant that any employer running a background check would immediately see that he'd been fired for civil rights violations. He found work briefly in private security, but was terminated within 3 months when clients discovered his history. The video of him arresting Marcus Whitfield, viewed millions of times, made him permanently unemployable in any field involving public trust or authority. He issued no public statement beyond a brief apology through his attorney. I made serious errors in judgment that I deeply regret. I accept responsibility for my actions. Marcus Whitfield used a portion of the settlement to establish a scholarship fund for students pursuing careers in civil rights law and criminal justice reform. He also became an advocate, speaking at police training sessions across the state, sharing his experience with rooms full of new officers. When Officer Kelton stopped me, I was doing nothing wrong, nothing suspicious, nothing illegal. I was waiting for a friend outside a gym I'd been a member of for over a year, but he looked at me and saw a threat. That's what unchecked bias does. It turns innocent people into suspects, turns routine moments into confrontations, turns your careers into cautionary tales. The Brookford Police Department implemented all mandated reforms. The extended field training reduced misconduct complaints by 47% in the first year. The supervisor approval requirement for rookie-initiated detentions prevented several potentially problematic stops. The bias training, combined with regular testing and scenario-based evaluation, helped officers recognize and challenge their assumptions. Chief Whitfield used the incident as a catalyst for broader reforms. He partnered with community organizations, established regular public forums for accountability discussions, and made bodycam footage more accessible through a public portal. The department became a model studied by other agencies trying to implement meaningful change. But the most profound impact was personal. Marcus Whitfield continued his workouts at peak fitness, refused to be driven away from his routine by one officer's prejudice. But he was changed. He noticed patrol cars differently now, felt tension when officers were nearby, carried the memory of being handcuffed for existing in public space. 2 years after the incident, he reflected in an interview. The settlement was about accountability. The reforms were about preventing it from happening again. But neither can restore what was taken, the fundamental sense of safety that comes from knowing you can exist in public spaces without being criminalized. My brother runs the police department. I won $8.5 million, and I still feel vulnerable when I see a police car. That's the real cost, not the money the city paid, but the trust that was broken and can't be fully repaired. The body cam footage from that June afternoon remains a training tool, shown to new officers as an example of how assumptions destroy careers and violate rights. Ryan Kelton's 7-month law enforcement career serves as a warning about what happens when departments prioritize staffing over training, when warning signs are ignored, when bias is allowed to operate as instinct. And Marcus Whitfield's experience serves as a reminder that no credentials, no family connections, no amount of legitimacy can fully protect black men from being presumed criminal. That accountability and reform, while necessary, can't erase the daily reality of moving through a world where your presence is seen as suspicious, where waiting for a friend requires being prepared to prove you belong. If you believe these stories matter, if you think officers who profile should lose their badges permanently, hit that subscribe button. We're exposing how inadequate training and unchecked bias create constitutional violations.
We're demanding accountability for officers who target people based on appearance. We're fighting for a system where waiting outside a gym doesn't require defending your right to exist. This isn't about one rookie or one victim. It's about every person who's been stopped without cause and forced to prove they're not a threat.